It has been very important in France for more than 20 years, this platform. Everybody used that. I use that very actively. I have everything there, even very little things. And I think it's amazing. It's really amazing. Like playing with the rules, not violating the rules, but sharing all the knowledge as much as possible. Then, almost in the same period, I discovered OpenStreetMap. So OpenStreetMap, everybody knows what is OpenStreetMap, right? Somebody doesn't know what is OpenStreetMap? No? Everybody knows. Okay. OpenStreetMap was a little young at that time as a project, so actually the map wasn't very mature, but I discovered it as everybody and as the creator of OpenStreetMap himself, being a student and not finding any data for his work, for his study, for his little project, and looking for more data. So I was in the same situation and somebody told me, oh, do you know OpenStreetMap? I found the idea fascinating, but I couldn't find the data I would need at that moment there. Maybe 2 years after, I rediscovered the project actually through HOT. Funny because I now work at HOT, which makes me really happy. But I needed an emotional connection to really connect with that. So as a child, I lived for 3 years in Mali, in Africa. And at that moment where I rediscovered the project, there was a crisis, a war in Mali. And in another wonderful moment where I was procrastinating for an entire summer and surfing the internet with no purpose, I discovered an activation from HOT, mapping Mali. And it was like, wow, it was really strong for me, and I had the time at that moment, so I mapped as like crazy for an entire month, and I never ended mapping. So at that moment with this activation, it allowed me to understand and to visualize a little more than with Folding at Home citizen science platform, the beauty of the massive effort of many people doing the same together at the same moment. So the massive, the collaborative, and the simultaneous, no? And the possibility to really see what people are doing with all the tasks being completed one after the other, and more projects being published, and all together doing that. Additionally to that, the pleasure, I'm a geographer, I've not mentioned that, I'm a social geographer. I discovered the pleasure of the cartography there, like looking at, so when you map in an activation, you look at satellite imagery and you just pass through kilometers and kilometers and kilometers of satellite imagery, looking for the objects you are supposed to map, so in this case, buildings. And I really find a pleasure doing that, like if I was in the place, discovering the place, looking at the beauty of the desert, etc. So from that, I never stopped. A few years after, I was invited to a hackerspace, like absolutely randomly, because again, I'm a social scientist. It's not an opportunity you have very commonly to join this kind of spaces. It's a hackerspace of Mexico City, which is called the Rancho Electrónico, Electronic Ranch. Really nice. So I was there just once, I think it was for a party, and somebody, this guy, Ulysses. He's a topographer, and he told us, oh, why don't we do a workshop on mapping? No, let's invite people. It's not a very interesting subject for the main part of the hackerspace, but let's try, no? So we organized a workshop on mapping with a lot of training. It was maybe an entire year of training where everybody could bring something they know. I brought OpenStreetMap, and it was maybe my first occasion. It was my first occasion to train other people on OpenStreetMap. There was QGIS2, many things, no, in this workshop. And it was a moment where we shaped a group of friends. We are very friends. We love each other still nowadays. And we had the project of creating an OpenStreetMap Foundation chapter. We didn't do it in the end because it was very complex, administratively talking. We weren't living in the same city, so we just abandoned that. But it allowed us for more than a year with this common project to become friends and to shape a mission, a shared mission of training massively a lot of people on OpenStreetMap. So we started these years to organize huge trainings at universities, at the National University of Mexico, and many others. We demanded the university to have more than 100 people. We really wanted to create OpenStreetMap community in Mexico. And actually, it's beautiful because years after, I could realize that many officials in national institutions with who I would deal for anything received some of the trainings and would apply technologies they would have learned there in their profession. For example, Mapillary. Mapillary was a young project too at that moment. And people from the National Center of Disaster and Risk Management had covered the evacuation route on the volcano Popocatépetl with Mapillary just alone because they learned that in the training. So super nice. So we created this community in Mexico. We did this many training. From that, that's cool. You're here, Victor. From that also appeared a group of people from different countries of LATAM in an Abre LATAM event in 2014, I think, in Mexico City. And Victor here present did the very important, very simple but very significant act of creating the first chat, of Telegram with people from different countries. And I think that now it's an important and very active community. We are very related, actually more, in the case of Mexico, more than the national community, national chat, and it's what brings us maybe in these kinds of events. From that, in an event of OpenStreetMap LATAM in Sao Paulo, many important things were born in Brazil. In 2016, Cele, with Cele here present, and Miriam, who is not here, a Mexican woman who lives in Germany, we realized that we were very, very few women in this community. Cele made a little research to have some statistics, and she found that we were less than 3% of women in the community of OpenStreetMap. It's difficult to actually know because the registration in OpenStreetMap is completely anonymous and you are not asked for your gender. So it was more based on qualitative research. But 3%, it's just a problem, So we decided to organize a panel in this state of the map to just discuss like this with the public and ask, so do you feel there is a lack of gender balance in the community? Do you feel that do you think it's a problem? Why? And what should we do, So it was a very interesting moment, and at the end we were 4 women in the table for this panel. At the end, we decided to form not such a community, but just also, again, a chat, a chat to just be in contact and discuss. And for these chats, we were like these ladies, like 20 ladies at the end of the state of the map. It has been a community very active, not in the sense that we produce a lot of projects. We are voluntarily not a productive space. We are a space where we are just connected, where we consider it's a safe space. We can learn, we can think together, we can just generate ideas or criticize ideas, etc. And an important activity that we do on a more systematical way is geotica stakes. So here we see years after, it was 3 years ago in Tanzania, geotica stake, like enormous, many women. And the idea of this space is like the gathering we did here 2 days ago is just to meet between women at the beginning of large conferences, so women can just feel a little more connected, and it's particularly important for young women that don't have the experience of being in a conference or of talking through a public. They can feel very stressed, and being able to know other women, to make friendship just before, it's key to take a higher benefit of the connecting dimension of such an event. This is a map. It's a little old. Maybe it's bigger now, but it's a map of where we, some of us are located. So a lot in Latin America, but also in Europe, a lot in Spain. We have a channel in Spanish, of course, with 300 people now, and another in English with maybe 100. And all of this brought me to HOT. So HOT is the organization where I'm working. I'm the regional manager of Latin America. And it's not just a job for me, it's really significant, and it's really where I have to be after all this journey. And I will just share, I won't present the organization, but I will just share the argument with what we generally present the organization that makes a lot of sense to me, no? For all these ideas I presented. So the organization was born after a major disaster, Haiti in 2010, where the island was mainly destroyed, one of the poorest countries in the world, so with a very poor map too. Also very poor commercial maps, because not an interesting place for commercial maps. OpenStreetMap was already quite developed there, but not a lot. And after an activation, so the first informal actually activation of HOT, with an invitation, an open invitation in all the communication channels of OpenStreetMap, so mailing list, chats or whatever, people were invited to everybody all together and very quickly map Haiti, because emergencies organizations were already on the ground trying to operate, and they couldn't because they didn't know where was the highways, the streets, the ways, and where was the communities. So it was an experiment, non-conscious experiment, but to see what could be the power of the community and the reactivity of the mapping community for a real impact, a real need at that precise moment. And it was a success. 2 days after the invitation, the main objects were mapped, and 3 weeks after the beginning of the activation, an impressive number and typology of details were mapped everywhere in Haiti. So from that, some passionate guys decided to create an NGO, and it stayed as a very little NGO for many years. Here it's a map of Kibera, a slum in Nairobi. On a side, Google Maps, on the other side, OpenStreetMap. Here, just look at very quickly the kind of points of information you can see on both maps, and you will see a difference in the philosophy of the kind of things that are represented. So on the first side, shops and main equipments. On the other side, very little and very community kinds of points. So a lot of churches, a lot of access to water, a lot of little equipment of health, etc. No? So these represent all the difference between a collaborative and a project that represents a diversity and put many efforts to represent this diversity, a very wide diversity, cultural diversity, and from the community vision, no? Compared to something that shows the vision of other sectors. How people map? Well, very easily, actually, on platforms on the web, no? Over more complex, but looking at satellite imagery or drone imagery and just drawing the things they see. So extremely manual, extremely crafted by people, but until today, it's still much faster than automatized way. If we want this level of detail and the level of updated, so if we want something really updated until the moment that we have the last imagery available, it's faster than any other method still, of course, and hopefully it will change, but it's still the most effective way to have a current image of the territory. Something that still continues and that's still developed hot are more analogical methods of mapping the vision of the communities, where technologies are not the best way to work with people because of the technology available in communities, or because there is no internet, no energy, etc. But giving the possibility to this information to get to the impact. So many social scientists, it's extremely traditional that social scientists make this kind of mapping, manual mapping with communities where people represent what they want, and it stays like that. The main objective of it is the expression, no? The expression of the information, the expression of a common culture, cosmovision of the place, and that's all. And it's a pity. What we do at HOT, and what I also think we always have to do, is to transform this qualitative information into a kind of information, a format of information that can lead to an impact. So digitizing, simply, no? Making, creating a shapefile from this kind of mapping. Actually there, it's a project we developed in Tulum in Mexico. Creating a local community, which is this one, the shirt I have today. It's not a hazard. It's not casual. So we worked with all the communities, indigenous communities of this municipality. Maybe you have heard of Tulum. It's a very famous touristic city in Mexico, but it's actually a big municipality with many other localities that are absolutely invisible and in horrible condition of life. So we integrated all their perception and experience of living the disasters, the hurricanes, each year there, into the local atlas, risk atlas. So the local risk atlas is it's a difficult thing to develop in Mexico because they really need the local cartography at a very good level of detail, and it doesn't exist. And it's an important legal document to plan the territory and plan the city. So it is possible. And finally, the idea that all this data, this participatory data, can and has to be crossed with other kind of data to create analysis, to create modulation, and to actually become one insight in the entire public policy cycle that will impact people's lives. So it comes to the end. All this idea of the collaborative in my journey got to the other idea that inclusion is needed for a really effective collaborative process, and a process that ends on common good effects. No? And just that, I invite you all to think around, wow, how can you do your process more inclusive in general, in terms of gender, of culture, of ages, of different culture representations, etc. I think we have something I try to do in my career, and I invite you to do the same, is permanently invite new people, invite the youth to participate, to be trained with a high quality standards, to be trained to gain soft skills, leadership, coordination skills, the capacity to deal with public institutions, so to also locate themselves in a good place for their professional development. Promote more community. When you find a community, that can be a chapter of the youth, a node in a university, a course with a professor that leads important questions with his students. Try to connect this node with other nodes. Try to create new nodes. No, and that's it. Thanks a lot.